The blockbuster clash at the Emirates between two title contenders ended with a breathtaking edge-of-your-seat drama. Arsenal, despite being stripped of several key players, showed immense resilience, dominating possession, pressing relentlessly, and throwing everything forward right up until the final whistle in search of a goal. Manchester City, meanwhile, opted for an unusually pragmatic approach under Pep Guardiola. They struck early through Erling Haaland, then dropped back to protect their lead, a rare, almost uncharacteristic display of pragmatism that spoke of maturity. For a while, it looked as though that defensive wall would carry City back to Manchester with all 3 points in the bag. But deep into stoppage time, Gabriel Martinelli stepped up as Arsenal's savior, smashing home a decisive strike to snatch a 1-1 draw. The result felt fair, a fitting reflection of the battle, but it also rewrote the narrative of the title race, leaving reigning champions Liverpool as the biggest winners, quietly cashing in as the opportunists watching from afar. Before kickoff, both Mikel Arteta and Pep Guardiola were forced into difficult selection puzzles. Arsenal were missing creative heartbeat Martin Odegaard, false nine Gabriel Jesus, and versatile option Kai Havertz. That left Arteta with no choice but to trust fresh faces and less experienced names. Up front, Victor Gyökeres was handed the lone striker role. He was flanked by Leandro Trossard and Noni Madueke, while Bukayo Saka, only just back from injury, started on the bench. In midfield, Arteta opted for solidity over flair, deploying Mikel Merino, Martin Zubimendi, and Declan Rice as a safety-first trio. At the back, it was Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, and Calafiori, shielding David Raya in goal. City, too, were not at full strength. Alongside absentees Calvin Phillips and Mateo Kovacic, the likes of Ait Nouri, Omar Marmoush, and Ryan Cherki were also missing. Even so, Pep had enough of his core to stick with the familiar spine, albeit not at peak condition. Ruben Dias and Joško Gvardiol marshaled the defense, with Kusanov and O'Reilly filling in, and Gianluigi Donnarumma between the sticks. Rodri anchored the midfield, supported by Bernardo Silva, Phil Foden, and new signing Reinders. Out wide, Jeremy Doku and Foden interchanged fluidly, while up front, it was once again Erling Haaland, the man City always looked to for goals. The game's flow made the contrast clear, and the final stats confirmed it. Arsenal bossed possession with nearly 67%, peppered City's goal with shots, and dictated the tempo from start to finish. Manchester City, on the other hand, held the ball for just 33% of the match, a staggering statistic for a team that under Guardiola has become the very symbol of possession football. Yet, it was City who struck first. In the 9th minute, they delivered a textbook counter-attack. Tijani Reinders burst forward and slipped in a perfectly weighted pass, and Erling Haaland did the rest with a ruthless finish. From that moment, the tactical contrast was laid bare. Arsenal piled forward with wave after wave of attacks, but lacked the sharp edge in the final third. Victor Gyökeres was tightly marshaled, and efforts from midfield lacked the precision to trouble Donnarumma. City, meanwhile, sat deep, defended with discipline, and used Rodri's tireless mobility to shut down Arsenal's combinations through the middle. Guardiola had clearly abandoned control for security, choosing to defend first, something you almost never associate with him. But numbers never lie. Arsenal racked up twice as many shots, dominated the ball, and in the end their persistence was rewarded when Gabriel Martinelli broke City's resistance with his stoppage-time equalizer. From the opening whistle, though, City's plan was clear. Instead of dropping into a mid-block straight away, they pressed high for the first 10 minutes, forcing Arsenal into uncomfortable positions. Pep's 4-1-4-1 shifted constantly. Reinders and Bernardo Silva drifted between the lines, forming an inverted triangle with Rodri to squeeze the center of the pitch. Out wide, Doku and Foden pressed aggressively on Timber and Calafiori, pinning Arsenal's fullbacks. Even Haaland didn't just sit as a lone target man. He shifted laterally, cutting off passing lanes and forcing Gabriel or Saliba to recycle the ball backwards. The system worked, at least early on. Arsenal struggled to gain any numerical advantage in midfield, dragged into scrappy duels rather than controlled possession. and when City won the ball, they transitioned instantly, slicing through the gaps left by Arsenal's advancing midfielders. The opener in the 9th minute was a perfect example. Arsenal lost the ball in midfield. Haaland immediately threaded a pass into Reinders, whose pace tore through the space behind Zubimendi. With Doku dragging defenders wide, Haaland ghosted into the box and finished with icy composure past Raya. Quick transition, space exploited, movement executed. After the opener, City immediately dropped the tempo. They pulled their lines back into a compact mid-block, shaping into a disciplined 4-1-4-1 while waiting for the right moment to strike again. Rodri anchored the space just ahead of Ruben Dias and Josko Gvardiol, while Bernardo Silva stuck tightly to Zubimendi, cutting off Arsenal's vertical passing lanes. The effect was clear. Arsenal's build-up was forced wide, away from the danger zones they wanted to penetrate. Despite dominating possession in the first half, Arsenal's play lacked imagination. The midfield trio of Merino, Zubimendi, and Rice opted for safety-first passes, slowing the tempo and failing to crack open City's defensive block. On the left, Trossard often drifted inside, searching for pockets of space, but without Odegaard, he had no partner to combine with in those tight areas. On the right, Madueke was tightly shackled, unable to win his 1v1 duels, which left Gyökeres starved of service in the box. And when the ball did reach him, Diaz tracked him relentlessly with Gvardiol sweeping behind, shutting down any chance for the Swedish striker to turn or get a shot away. The first half was a tactical chess match that Guardiola won convincingly. He exploited the space behind Arsenal's backline for the opening goal, then immediately erected a defensive wall with Rodri as its cornerstone. Arteta, by contrast, looked short of solutions to unlock City's low block without Odegaard, the one man capable of threading vertical passes and knitting together play through the middle. By the break, Arteta knew that sticking with Rice, Zubimendi, and Merino would never be enough to break down City's fortress. He didn't hesitate. On came Bukayo Saka and Eberechi Eze, two players who could tilt the rhythm and inject creativity Arsenal desperately needed. The impact was instant. With Saka on the pitch, Arsenal had a far more unpredictable weapon than Madueke. His ability to hold the ball, vary his touches, and wrong-foot defenders forced City to adjust. Left-back O'Reilly, who in the first half had tucked inside to help clog the middle, was now pinned wide to deal with Saka directly. That opened a seam of space between O'Reilly and Gvardiol. Saka repeatedly received the ball, feinted past his marker, and fired dangerous cutbacks across the box. None of them quite found the finish, but they forced City out of their rigid defensive shape. The compact block of the first half was gone. Cracks had started to appear. If Saka changed the tempo, then Eberechi Eze changed the game. Unlike Zubimendi or Merino, whose passing was safe and predictable, Eze brought something Arsenal had been crying out for: close control, dribbling, and the ability to wriggle through tight spaces. Time and again, he picked the ball up between the lines, dragging Bernardo Silva or even Rodri out of position, carving open channels for his teammates to exploit. On a few occasions, he even drove straight at the back line, forcing Ruben Dias to step out of position and temporarily unbalancing City's defensive block. With every passing minute, Arsenal grew more dominant. At one stage in the second half, they had nearly 70% possession. Their shape morphed into a classic 2-3-5. Only Saliba and Gabriel stayed deep, while Timber and Calafiori pushed high like wingbacks. Whenever Arsenal lost the ball, Declan Rice immediately counter-pressed to shut down City's attempts to break out. City, by contrast, retreated further and further. Their shape became a near 4-5-1, with Doku and Foden dropping to form a flat midfield line, shielding the fullbacks. Rodri was the pivot, constantly shuffling across the edge of the box to plug gaps. As the clock ticked down, Guardiola practically abandoned counterattacks. Every clearance was hoofed long toward Haaland, who was left isolated without support. From the 70th to the 85th minute, Donnarumma's goal was under siege. Saka and Eze both unleashed shots. Trossard tried his luck from distance. Each time, City survived, but only just. Guardiola responded by throwing on extra defenders, stacking his backline with centre-backs and holding midfielders to thicken the barricade. Arteta countered with a bold move of his own. Gabriel Martinelli, Arsenal's super sub, was unleashed down the left to target City's tiring right flank. And in the end, that one substitution made all the difference. Martinelli didn't see much of the ball, but all he needed was a single moment, and when it arrived, he pounced. His late strike didn't just rescue a point, it symbolized everything about the second half. Arsenal relentless, suffocating in their pressure. City passive, hanging on by a thread. The equalizer was the reward for Arteta's courage and persistence, and proof that tactical tweaks can turn dominance into results. This match perfectly captured the razor-thin margins at the summit of the Premier League. An Arsenal side that attacked relentlessly against a Manchester City reduced to desperate defending, something we had rarely, if ever, witnessed under Guardiola. One mistake, one fleeting gap, was enough to flip the script. Arsenal walked away with belief reinforced, City with lessons learned. And the fans, they were treated to a clash that kept them breathless until the very last second.